Hi all, it's Emily Rand with ESPN Esports, and we have just finished up the entirety of the play-in stage, so I just wanted to talk about a few things that I noticed in play-ins or just discussion around play-ins. The first being the age-old, why do we have to have play-ins in the first place? Should we have, previously it was international wildcard teams, now they're called emerging regions. I think that name is a little bit off because some of these regions like, for example, Vietnam was previously called an emerging region. They were one of the original GPL regions back in 2012. So regardless of semantics, I think there's been some interesting discussion on the value of play-ins, and I just wanted to say that any tournament where you do have a group like what we saw from Group C, where even before the fourth team was drawn in, you have SKT, Fnatic, and Royal Never Give Up, who are rated about, top 5, top 6 teams at this tournament going in. I do think that this is a tournament that's more about inviting teams from all over the world to compete. Now, how much that competition is valuable, I do think is a discussion that we have to have, and there's obviously infrastructural and financial deficiencies that I am seeing people discuss for the first time. So keep up that discussion, because I think it's actually really important to talk about, what does a team get from coming here, because first of all, there's such a gap in terms of when they can bring what they learned here back to their region, if that's the case, and also whether being in their region is going to allow them to actually improve if they're not constantly facing better teams. Now, moving forward to something slightly less depressing, I think the two teams that I kind of wanted to touch upon are Damwon Gaming and Clutch, for teams that were really impressive through this group stage. And the reason why I liked what both of them did is because I think we saw, in terms of looking at their draft priority from the first games that we saw to their last, looking at how they adjusted over best of fives, even in Clutches when they were, it was kind of a clean sweep, which I wasn't expecting. I was expecting to be a little bit more messy, but you saw Damwon adjust after they dropped that game to low key, despite the fact that they maybe should have won that first game as well. I think these are two teams that have really shown what play-ins are good for, and a lot of the major region teams have said being in play-ins, G2 from last year said this, EDG said this, and Cloud9 said it, is that it allows them to try to get an earlier grasp on the meta, test out some stuff that they've been doing in scrims on stage where people tend to be a little bit more hesitant. And that doesn't mean nerves, it just means, you have a 40-60 play that you might not go for, that you would go for in scrims because there's just less pressure. So I think both Damwon and Clutch have said that being here has really allowed them to adapt and evolve, and it's something we've seen from both of these teams. Clutch within their regional gauntlet series in particular, and then Damwon all the way back in Rift Rivals. People forget that Damwon actually were not doing that well previously, and they were able to take a lot of things that they learned from facing the LPL and LMS teams back to Korea and actually really improve as a team. So I think these are two teams that are incredibly dangerous because they've shown that they have been able to adapt and might have a little bit more flexibility than people had thought. Anyway, that's a little bit about some of the things that I learned from play-ins, some of the things I wanted to talk about. For more League of Legends coverage from the World Championship, keep it here on ESPN Esports.